Hey, it's A Humble Collector here, and today's video we're going to take a look at the 2-pound death card of Ludwig Reitinger. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So right off the bat, you'll notice that Ludwig has ribbons that he's wearing in his buttonhole there. That by itself is not unusual. However, if you look closely, there's actually 3 of them. So Ludwig in his photo there seems to be wearing ribbons for the Iron Cross Second Class, the War Merit Cross, and the Eastern Front Medal. Which is very unusual. I don't think I've ever seen anybody wearing all 3 ribbons at the same time. Now, going ahead and moving to the text of the card here. In pious memory to our dear, unforgettable brother, brother-in-law, and uncle, Ludwig Reitinger, farmer's son in Feiern, Stabsgefreiter in a Grenadier Regiment, bear the Iron Cross Second Class, the War Merit Cross, the Eastern Front Medal, the Crimean Shield, and the Wound Badge, who died a hero's death for his beloved homeland on December 23rd, 1944, after 6 years of loyal service in the Courland combat area near Stedini, Kompany in Latvia at the age of 32. So right off the bat, we note here that Ludwig has 6 years of service prior to his death. So 6 years of service backed off in 1944 means that he's been in the military since about 1938. In which case Ludwig has survived the entire war, and that's pretty evident by the number of awards he has as well. I mean, he has the Crimean Shield, showing that he was involved in the campaign in Crimea in 1941. He has the Wound Badge. He's picked up a War Merit Cross, an Iron Cross Second Class, and of course the Eastern Front Medal is also indicative that he survived that first brutal winter on the Eastern Front. Now, we see cards actually fairly often for soldiers that die in Latvia in 1944 due to the fighting that was going on there in Courland. A lot of fierce battles going on in 44 as well as into 45. And unusually for a card for somebody from Courland, I actually found Ludwig's casualty record. He was born on June 7th, 1913 in Feiern, and was a member of the 6th Company of Grenadier Regiment 438, part of the 132nd Infantry Division. Now, Volksbund, his casualty record death card here, all lists his place of death as Stedini. And I was having trouble finding it online. I really was not able to pin it down. However, I did actually pick up this book here. So I move Ludwig's card for a second. Yes, Unlit an meiner Seite, which is the history of the 132nd Infantry Division. This is a really cool book, by the way. I've only translated the part that I needed for this, but I love the bigger size. The cover's super cool. There's some really neat extra information in here. There's some really good photos. If you go to the back of the book, there's all these different actual documents and things that have been scanned in. It's super neat. But going to the page in question here, which I had marked. Yeah, right there. So, as we can see here, on this page actually, we see Stedini mentioned, and in the handy-dandy map, we can actually see there is Stedini right up there, so lines up perfectly with the information on the card. So, what exactly was going on around the time of Ludwig's death? Well, I actually translated these pages here, and I can give you the full rundown of what was going on in the weeks leading up to his passing. Stedini and Papali, December 1944. At the beginning of December 1944, Major de Camp, the division's IA, assigned me a new task. Construction battalions and other lumped-together units moved into the division's main battlefield, which was staggered in depth. The Army group had ordered that rear positions be built in quieter times. The artillery reception position had often played a decisive role in preventing enemy breakthroughs in previous battles, and so I had a second and third line of defense based on the maps received at the divisional command post. Deeply staggered tank cover holes, local defense installations, gun positions are created, and a trench plow can be used which, if used skillfully, can create a good 1,000 meters of trench in one night in this not very rocky ground. Far behind us, the blocking positions are being created, prepared by the Army, in case the Courland divisions should ever retreat to the coast on highest orders. The slogan for this is trenches instead of graves. In mid-December, this work is made more difficult by sudden frost. The ground freezes rock hard, the muddy roads and paths are passable again, and there is something in the air. The companies at the front and the artillery observers report heavy vehicle traffic in front of the division line. The noise of tanks can be heard at night. In order to save ammunition, our artillery is only allowed a few rounds a day. Fighter aircraft units and bomber squadrons with the red 5-pointed star on the tail and wings fly over us on these frosty, clear December days to bomb our 2 supply ports of Labau and Windau and disrupt supply traffic. The anti-aircraft guns and the few fighters remaining with the Army group fight with the courage of the numerically inferior. They are under the command of General Flugbeil and shoot down 25 Red Air Force aircraft over Courland on December 15, 1945, and the next day alone. So that I can better carry out my task from a central location these days, the regimental doctor of 438, Staff Doctor Dr. Schilp, takes me in on his Latvian farm. 2 women and an old man still live on the farm. The younger of the women, probably the daughter, speaks German quite well. When we ask why they don't move further back to be safe from the grenades that explode in the area every day, she answers, "Where to? There's no home there anymore, just the sea." They heat the bathhouse, fry potatoes for us. The old man chops wood in the shed and nails the fur of a marten to a board to dry. This is how he has worked on this farm all his life. He says, "We Latvians have the dog in the country." By that he means us. But soon we'll have to have the wolf, the Soviets, as our friend. Poldy, as we call the regimental doctor, always had work to do. The battalion's wounded come here, often under cover of night, on carts with straw piled up on them, with bandages soaked with blood, pale, unshaven, and dirty, hopelessly apathetic or still, with a glowing spark of life in their hearts. A true humanist takes care of them under the flag of the Red Cross on a white background. He checks the wounds, renews the makeshift bandages, gives painkillers, ties off limbs, and splints bone fractures. The serious cases are taken to the ambulances of the division, and the first operations are carried out at the division's main dressing station, just a few kilometers behind the front. The helpers of the defeated, doctors and medics with the staff of Aesculapius and the scalpel in their coat pockets, are to be messengers of humanitas for us even during our time of captivity. Many a good palaver still flourishes in Poldy's hut by the hearth fire when I arrive frozen from the pitch-black night after building a position. In the flickering light of the warming fireplace, he sits with his splendid medical sergeant, and then celebrates my safe return with a glass or two. Here is security, warmth, even a piece of home that radiates not only from the burning logs, but also from the hearts of those sitting there. Poldy has black hair, good brown eyes, and a narrow face. During the palaver, I mentioned the Roman legionary, or general, who, as his ancestor, once served in the Gallic Legion in the fort of Mainz, which was my hometown. On the other hand, because I come from the Black Forest, he counts me amongst the blonde Alemanni who conquered the land and attacked the Roman lines. Will we ever stand before the millennia-old cultural monuments of the West? Will we ever step into the semi-darkness of the Mainz Cathedral to say a prayer of thanks? And the questions keep coming. What will happen next? Will the Courland army be sacrificed against the overwhelming enemy so that later, as at Stalingrad, we can say, true to its soldierly duty, the Courland army fought to the last bullet and through its perseverance helped tie down strong enemy forces in order to enable the construction of new defensive lines on the borders of the homeland. And one tells the story of the retreat of the German troops in the Crimea, when boats and ferry barges set off into the open sea and headed to Odessa. The last defenders of the peninsula, seeing themselves abandoned, called out to them in chants, "We are the honorary citizens of the nation." Then they began the bitter path to years of captivity. A few days before the expected major attack, a new bunker for the medical unit was completed at the regimental command post, and we moved there so that the wounded could be housed in a relatively safe place. The Latvian farm near Stedini, however, was riddled with Soviet tank shells. None of the residents of the house were seen again. A well-traveled road leads from the direction of Pampali to Stedini, in the division's sector, and forks there. One road branch leads northeast to Frauenburg, the other to Lubau. The Russians want to break through here in order to split up Courland and take Lubau. The Third Battle of Courland. On December 21st, 1944, at 6 a.m. sharp, fire broke out from many fire pits in the division's sector. 800 of the opposing side's artillery, salvo guns, anti-tank guns, and mortars alone were found in the sector of the 438th Grenadier Regiment. A furious fire-breathing hurricane is sweeping over the trenches, machine gun, and firing positions on our front line. Mother Earth is being trampled, torn apart, turned over. The bunkers are shot to pieces. The defenders' trenches are leveled. For 3 long hours, the claws are roaring down on this earth, our last refuge in the roar of battle. First, the heavy fire is directed on the front position. Then it jumps over to the heights of Stedini. Then it strikes the woods behind it, where the regimental command post is nestled. The treetops are splintering, whole trees are uprooted and flying into the air. Grenades are hitting the timbers of the bunkers and shelters. Minutes seem like an eternity. The first wounded stagger in, covered in blood, or are brought in on tarpaulins. Poldy and his medics have their hands full. I help him put an airtight bandage on a lung wound. The wounded report that Ivan broke through, mainly in the left sector, with many tanks and mounted infantry. As the barrage of fire subsides, the red fighter planes fly over the forest, dropping bombs and shooting with onboard weapons. There are very clear bangs in the chaos of the firefight. Those have to be tanks. As I exit the shelter, I see a few men running toward us and lying on the ground behind our bunker, gasping for air, shouting, "Tanks, tanks." Then I rush out and stumble over the shot-up trunks of the forest. The grenades are bursting on all sides, and close to the communication bunker, chased by the shots of the tanks, I reach my old friend, Oberleutnant Reck. the headmaster's son from Saarbrücken. A tank grenade has ripped open his body. He sinks to his knees and falls into my arms with sightless eyes. Then, as so many times in previous battles, I am seized by that unimaginable, boundless rage that knows neither the enemy nor itself. There is no longer bravery, it is an obsession that has its origins in an irritated brain and overstretched nerves. My temples are pounding with the thought. Revenge, destruction of the attackers, death to those who are to blame for the miserable death of my good friend. He got it, so I'm not going to fare any better. 2 of Rex's men run with me. At the command post of the 14th, the stovepipe squad is getting ready to fight tanks. A few anti-tank weapons are leaning next to the bunker entrance, and I rush with one of them through the forest, which is about 150 paces deep, to the edge of the forest. Rifle bullets whistle in, tank shells chop up the trees next to me. There, 20 meters from a bush at the end of the forest, I see the throat of a T-34 tank gun. I make a 50-meter arc back into the forest, and without lying flat once, jump toward the tank from the side. With my lungs whistling, I kneel between shot-up branches, 30 paces from the monster, which has a large number painted on it next to the red star on the turret. In a flash, I pull the safety pin out of the anti-tank weapon and fold the aiming device up. The fluttering pulse, the pounding heart. I have to aim properly. The red star on the turret, the square cut out of the sheet metal of the Panzerfaust sight. With the last of my willpower, I force myself to remain calm and pull the trigger. A trail of fire shoots out from behind me from the rear opening of the forest, but flying forward like a bomb, clearly visible to the eye, the bazooka head hits the turret of the steel giant, tears through the armor, and explodes into fire and steel inside. The turret hatch flies open, fine smoke curls out. No one comes out. Pressed to the ground, I watch for the next 20 seconds as a second tank, initially imperceptible to me, 50 paces away, reverses like a growling predator towards the Red Army soldiers lying in the open field. But it too was not to get far. The stovepipe group of the 14th Panzerjäger Company of the 438th puts an end to it too. Standing behind the trees at the edge of the forest, 150 paces from the regiment's command post, the 2 from before and I fire with assault rifles and carbines at the Russian company, lying 200 meters in front of us on the open, hard-frozen meadow ground. After a short infantry firefight, the Ivans retreat, dragging their wounded with them before our 3 guns. Meanwhile, Hauptmann Brander's assault guns are approaching. One is hit on the road near the regiment, but the others fire at the Russian tanks that are assembling at the height of Stedini. On the first day of the Battle of Courland, the Russians lose more than 20 tanks near Stedini, at the strategically important crossroads to Frauenburg and Lebau, near Regiment 438. The lead tank at the front was destroyed by my Panzerfaust. The second one was hit by a winged grenade from the stovepipe of the 14th. Other tanks were shot down in close combat by the Grenadiers, and the rest were taken by the assault guns. Thus, the spearhead of the enemy's breakthrough was destroyed on the first day. The battles raged until the end of December. It was a sad celebration, the last and 6th Christmas of the war for the troops. And yet, when the Fusilier Battalion of another division moved forward to reinforce and relieve them, on the night of December 24th, 1944, there was no defiant marching song, but rather the simple and moving song, Silent Night, Holy Night, coming from the throats of the troops, and there was still no peace on earth. Although it suffered great casualties, the division nevertheless survived this defensive battle with only insignificant losses of terrain. It was detached and moved to quieter areas south of Lebau at the end of December, beginning of January. The Third Battle of Courland, however, became another test of their steadfastness. The High Command of the Wehrmacht reports on our last battle of 1944, which was a complete defensive success for the Courland troops. The Army Group Courland destroyed 513 tanks, 79 guns, and 267 machine guns of the Red Army, and shot down 145 aircraft. The focus of the battle was not only on our 132nd Infantry Division, but also on our left-handed neighbor, the 225th North German Infantry Division, which was also fighting bravely. A total of 20 enemy divisions had also attacked the positions of the 24th, 205th, 215th, 290th, and 329th Infantry Divisions, as well as the 31st Volksgrenadier Division during these days of fighting. The 912th Army Assault Gun Brigade, parts of the 12th Panzer Division, the SPW Battalion of the 5th Regiment under Hauptmann Gauss, known in many sectors of the front as the Man with the Peaked Cap, had repeatedly counterattacked. Without the brave help of these Courland troops, this great defensive success would not have been possible. Our division, which had already been weakened, lost well over 1,000 men killed, wounded, and missing in the second and third battles of Courland. So yeah, a very well-written first-hand account from the author of this book, at least I believe that's him, a Gottlob Herbert Biderman. Like I said, very well-written. Would very much like to translate more of that in the future. Now, according to Ludwig's casualty record, he would die from artillery shrapnel to the stomach and arm. And I included the segment at the beginning of the lead-in talking about the regimental doctor Poldi because as I was translating it, I couldn't help but wonder, did Poldi treat Ludwig as he lay dying? You know, was he there? The author, Gottlob, did he know Ludwig? He seemed to be very familiar with the 438th Regiment and the men in it. Definitely a very interesting account. It just shows the fierceness of the fighting that was going on at the time of Ludwig's death. Now, moving to the back of the card here, we have a nice HCOM 508 backing. I have to die far from my home. I die an early death in enemy territory. I died like many of my comrades, and now go home to the good Lord. The little stars lend their holy shimmer and greet the quiet place of my grave. Oh, take heart. The eternal light shines for me forever in my home there. So live well, all of you, my dear ones, and be comforted in your deep woe. It will only take a little while until I am happy to see you all again. And before we wrap up here, I do have a few other cards for members of the 132nd. Andreas Zettel, who was a Gefreiter in the 1st Company of Infantry Regiment 437, was killed by a gut shot at the Crimean Peninsula on December 25th, 1941. Berthold Hemmel, who was a Gefreiter in the 4th Company, which was the Heavy Machine Gun Company, of Infantry Regiment 436, was killed by a headshot on the Crimean Peninsula on April 11th, 1942. Ludwig Frauendorfer was a Feldwebel in the 4th Company of Infantry Regiment 437, and died from wounds suffered during an air raid in Kreuzberg, Germany on December 6th, 1944. So yeah, really interesting card, really great account I was able to find to kind of tie everything together. And yeah, overall, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment down below. Love hearing from you. Thank you all for watching. Happy collecting, and I'll see y'all again very soon.